Celebrity chefs are quite familiar with anyone that owns a television set. But in the 18th century, it was an unknown concept. Today, I will be talking about one of the few exceptions, Mrs. Goodfellow. As a successful baker in colonial Philadelphia, she invented some incredible famous desserts, still known today, but most notably operated the first finishing school in America. In this episode, I will be joined by pastry chef Diana from the City Tavern as we prepare some of the famous Goodfellow treats, such as queen cake, jumbles, and lemon meringue pie. Mrs. Goodfellow's work lives on for a sweet taste of history. Wow, spectacular.
Although much mystery surrounds her, the culinary pioneer of colonial Philadelphia, known as Mrs. Goodfellow, left a legacy that continues to inspire bakers and cooks today. Widely accepted by historians for inventing the lemon meringue pie, Mrs. Goodfellow was highly respected for her fine baked goods as well as her distinguished culinary school. Many consider her to be the mother of American cookery.
Philadelphia was the food capital in the colonies. It was a port city, so ships would come in, bring really exotic foods from all over the world.
Located on Dock Street in Philadelphia, Mrs. Goodfellow had easy accessibility to these foreign imports and emphasized the use of only the finest and freshest ingredients.
She really was the top in her field. There were other bakeries, but they would be selling bread and things that you wouldn't consider to be the top pastries and desserts. So she really was, I think, top in her field in that respect.
Mrs. Goodfellow drew praise throughout the colonies for her high-end and innovative pastries, such as lemon meringue pie, as well as her catering service for Philadelphia's most exclusive clients.
Mrs. Goodfellow never published her own cookbook, but one of her students, Eliza Leslie, she wrote several cookbooks, and many of the recipes were taken directly from Mrs. Goodfellow.
For years after her death, Mrs. Goodfellow would be remembered by her students and her loyal customers.
Hi, Diana. Diana is my pastry chef here at the City Tavern. And today we are celebrating Mrs. Goodfellow. And Diana and I have done a lot of research. She baked a lot, I ate a lot. Diana, you did such a great job. You really, truly captured the moment. And I'm sure Mrs. Goodfellow would be looking down, she'll give us a 5-star review.
I would hope so. Thank you very much. It's been an honor getting to recreate some of her fantastic recipes.
For today's episode, we're going to concentrate on 3 recipes that Diana is going to show me.
Queen's cake, her jumbles, and last but not least, her famous lemon meringue pie.
She was really specializing on upper echelon desserts. So tell me the rest of the things you brought along. I know you have a...
Yes, her recipe for Dover cake. We have, of course, some classic, just chocolate truffles, very simple, but very decadent and very rare at the time. We also have our traditional Linzer tort here that, of course, we serve at the City Tavern every day. A traditional gingerbread with some additional meringue decorations there. Her fresh biscuits, of course.
And your beautiful apricot
tort.
And not to forget the candied fruit, which was very popular at the time. I'm not sure if they had grapes that size, but for today, we'll say she had them.
It's absolutely fascinating to me how beautiful and decadent everything is and every minute detail. We're going to start over here with Mrs. Goodfellow's recipe for Queen's cake. It is unique because of its flavor profile. It has all those rich spices, nutmeg and cinnamon, also brandy and Madeira, that really lend a nice flavor to it. It is essentially just a pound cake, and I did find a couple different recipes that she had mentioned. They're all vastly different as well. Some are more of a biscuit style pastry, some are more of this traditional pound cake, and it turned out beautifully. It's one of my new favorites.
And I like the name.
Yeah, it looks just like a crown.
Yeah. Why don't we go over to the beautiful Harrington house and show our viewers how to make this? So Diana, what's the first step for the queen cake?
First step is room temperature butter, ready to go here in our big old bowl, and a lot of sugar. That is what helps keep the Queen's cake for so long. They have a really nice long shelf life, even just at room temperature. You didn't necessarily have to keep them in a cellar.
Once sugar became available in the colonies and later in North America, the desserts were pretty sweet for most of the time. So many years they were deprived of sugar, so by the time they got it, everybody got excited.
Oh yes, everyone
I
was
don't
ready.
think their teeth got too excited. But,
what little teeth they had, right?
Yeah. So it's a nice cake that you just put in a fancy little mold.
That's right, a little mold. Some say that it may have been the first rendition of a cupcake, which is why they are meant to be in nice, small little tins. You never see a giant queen cake. That's just not the way it was done. Okay, this is getting good and crumbly. I'm just gonna give it a mix with my hands real quick. Really make sure the butter and sugar come together. Looking good. If you would add one of those eggs in here to help me.
1 egg?
1 egg.
Oh.
1.5 is good too.
That's it.
Perfect. Okay, I'm just gonna get in here again. Mix it up real good. This will help to loosen everything, and then we'll go ahead and add the rest of the eggs. Switch back to that spoon.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay,
All the eggs?
excellent.
All of
Yes,
them?
sir, all of them, and then you can keep on mixing. Excellent.
Since my hands are dirty, you might as well give me the rest of the ingredients.
Sounds good. We're gonna go a couple tablespoons of cream here, about 1/4 cup. Nice, looking good. All of our lovely, lovely booze.
Oh, all of it.
All of it. Brandy,
I had my eyes on them.
Madeira, and that flavor really comes through in the end.
Whew.
All right, and I'm gonna add our cinnamon and nutmeg into our flour and stir it a little bit with my finger just so that we don't end up with big clumps of cinnamon
Gotcha.
or nutmeg in the dough. Okay, so I'm just gonna dump all of this straight in on top. Beautiful.
So the consistency of that was somewhat on the softer side, so you can fill up the cups, correct?
That's right. It is very similar to a pound cake batter. So a little on the thick side for a cake batter, but not nearly something you would be able to roll out like a pie dough.
And look at that.
Beautiful. All the
And-
nice
and-
color.
And the flavors just escape your bowl there.
Every whip.
Yeah,
All
look at that,
right.
yeah.
And that's about it. You don't want to overdo it.
So would you recommend people doing it as such or not going to kitchen machine?
Oh, absolutely. It's a good little bicep workout. The creaming of the butter is the hardest, but that's what your hands are
Well, the
for.
only problem I always have with kitchen machines that you could also burn it, because if you overwork it,
That's right.
that's usually what the problem is.
Absolutely. Okay.
So now you're going to fill up the cups.
Gonna fill up our tins. I've just got a little bit of butter in there to help them slide out later.
The oven, the beehive is ready behind you.
Good, good, good.
Load them up. Perfect.
Okay.
Such a nice looking dough, isn't it?
Yeah, very,
The
very
color, the
smooth.
elasticity of it. It's really nice.
And they will puff up on top. So what I like to do is just level them off when they're cool, and that way they have a nice flat bottom to sit on. Okay, top this one off, and I think we're ready to go. Tap them out a little bit, not get any air bubbles.
That's it.
That's it.
In the oven, you say like 10, 15 minutes at 350?
Yeah, if 20 minutes, it seems to be pretty spot on. It is a relatively thick batter, so you want to make sure they're all the way cooked through.
How did anyone learn how to bake in the 18th century? Go to Mrs. Goodfellow's cooking school, of course.
In the 18th and 19th century, Philadelphia was a commercial center experiencing a robust economic market. This thriving metropolis embraced a cultural dialogue, including the arts, and the exchange of philosophical beliefs and new ideas. Mrs. Goodfellow extended those ideas to the young women that she taught, right out of her own bake shop. The school is thought to be the very first of its kind in America.
Other women had taught pastry skills out of their homes prior to Mrs. Goodfellow, but the fact that hers was this really established business model, that she was really at the forefront. It was unique that she was empowering women at the time and was progressive and telling them these are things that you can do to put yourself above the rest. She had this one saying, it takes a head even to make cakes. Because to her, cooking was a science, so she put it on the same level in the classroom.
Typically attracting daughters from wealthy families, Mrs. Goodfellow's students came from all over the colonies in order to learn new skills critical to their education entering high society.
She was not only teaching them cooking, they would learn etiquette, how to plate the dishes, how to throw a dinner party, a tea party.
Mrs. Goodfellow was a savvy business owner, educator of women, and a talented and innovative pastry chef. Her legacy and the mystery surrounding it would go on to transcend the colonies and find its place in American culinary history.
So much of our history can be learned through food, and what she was doing at the time really did trickle down. I mean, look at all the cooking schools today, and it's a fabulous business model that she kicked off for America. She really is a fascinating part of our history.
Diana, one other recipe that is written a lot about her and a lot of credits given to her is that art-shaped cookie that I really call. They call it jumbles, right?
Jumbles, that's
And
correct.
Does anybody know where the name jumbles come from? Is it?
I have not found a reason other than the fact maybe jumble sounds a little bit like tumble and they're tumbled around in sugar before they're baked. It may be a little bit of a stretch, but I think she would approve at least of the final result.
How about if I approve? Let me see.
Yeah, let's
Let me look
give
at
that
it
a
here.
try.
It's a sugar cookie.
Essentially, yes.
Beautiful.
Some cookies you roll them out in flour. Here we're rolling them in sugar, which gives them that nice crust all the way around.
And some extra calories.
Of course, you can never have enough calories. So this is essentially a cookie dough. So
Correct.
we really want to make sure the butter and sugar are creamed together nicely, smooth, smooth, smooth.
So the jumbles traveled very well, and I guess they're the relative to regular sugar cookie, wouldn't you think?
Yes, absolutely,
Short
very
of
similar.
the nutmeg maybe and the rose water, no?
Right, depending on your family recipe, of course. Okay, so this is looking good. Everybody's in there together. So now we'll add our eggs, one at a time.
One at a time.
Good. Okay, next. Wonderful.
Do you want me to give you the flour now or the rose water or the nutmeg?
Flavorings first.
Oh, gosh, beautiful. A little bit here.
There you go.
It's been a long-
Perfect.
it's been a long day in the kitchen. Ready?
Yes.
The flavor is like just unbelievable. People who never cook with rose water don't know what they're missing, you know?
Yeah, and a little goes a long way,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
A little nutmeg.
Yes, sir. Beautiful. So now we can really see it getting evenly dispersed before we add our flour. Excellent. A little bit of flour at a time so I don't spill it all out of the bowl, of course. Perfect. Get it going.
And just incorporate it all together again, like, you know.
That's right, just like any other cookie dough. Okay, and depending on how warm it is in your kitchen, you may need slightly more or slightly less flour.
And you recommend to let it dough sit up?
I do, yes, in the refrigerator or in a cellar, somewhere very cool. It's just easier to work with when it's chilled. Incorporate the rest of this with my hands so that it comes together more quickly.
All right, here we go.
There we are.
Okay.
Beautiful. And this way, you know you're not going to overmix it either. If you're doing it by hand,
Oh, that's,
never end up with a tough cookie. Okay, this is looking perfect. A little on the crumble side, that's exactly what you want. Somewhere in between a sugar and shortbread cookie. I'm going to divide this into two little balls here. I'll get the rest of that later. And we'll just refrigerate it nice, and we'll come back and roll it out.
perfect.
And this is the one that I've had refrigerated, ready to go. all we have left is sugar and dough. As you can see, this really has come together now that it's set up overnight. Firm, good to go. So I'm just gonna sprinkle a whole bunch of sugar down. Instead of using flour to roll these, you just use sugar. It's beautiful, and it gives them a nice crust on the outside, again, lending itself to their long shelf life. And we'll just cut little strips, and per Mrs. Goodfellow's instructions, she requests specifically 8-inch length rolled into a ring.
You're kidding, seriously?
I'm not kidding. My hand span is 8 inches. So we're in luck. So you just roll them out into a little log.
Look at that.
You want them pretty thin because they spread a lot when they bake. Check it against. Perfect. Loop it around. Press the ends together. Transfer it over to our parchment-lined tray. And I think one more for now will do.
Yep.
We'll get them in the oven.
How long in the oven and what temperature?
350 degrees for about 15 minutes should do the trick. You'll know they're done because they will have spread out into a donut-looking thing.
And I let you put them in the oven? How's
Okay,
that?
sounds good to
Beehive
me.
is ready. One of your legendary dishes that survived until today is what? The lemon meringue pie.
You're absolutely
And
right.
I mean, you made it, we studied it, I ate it, as you can tell, a bunch of times. Basically, it's like a 3-step. You gotta make a pie crust.
Absolutely.
Then you're gonna make your lemon curd. And then you gotta whip the meringue, put it all together, and then glaze it. And remember, glazing in those days was a lot of work,
That's right, 18th century plastic wrap.
as you'll see. So Diana, by all accounts, Mrs. Goodfellow is credited for inventing this particular dish in the 18th century. Her cooking school, was stone throw away from the tavern, as you know. She was the first to really make this lemon meringue pie, which was unique because why? Lemons did not grow in this country until Victorian days by big amounts. They might have a lemon tree here or there. But since she was located right on the harbor, she had access to lemon. And henceforth, she made a lemon meringue pie, which is actually an easy dish, but not so easy either, right?
That's right.
So the pie crust, the pie dough you already made, so what's
sir.
next? You're gonna roll it out for me?
That's right, it's just a pâte brisée, so as you can see, it's still a little bit
yeah.
crumbly, which is exactly what you want in order to make it very flaky and delicious. So we're just gonna flour our table here.
Diana, you actually know that you have an 18th century rolling pin that was in the inventory of Charles Thompson's estate that was built in 1704.
Working just as well as I'm sure it did that very first day to get this at a perfect thickness, just, you know, around 1/4 inch. And we're gonna slide it into our buttered pie plate here. Okay, beautiful. And just press it into the bottom.
And now comes something for the audience. I'm always intrigued. Do I blind bake? Don't I blind bake? What is your take on that?
What's the deal with blind baking? So if you're not gonna cook it at any point once it's filled, blind bake it. If it still has time in the oven, you don't necessarily have to blind bake it. So we're just gonna trim the excess off of the top here, and I'm gonna use the edge of the pie plate as a guide. Wonderful. And give it a couple little docks.
Correct.
Again, to help it not puff
Too high.
so that we can't fit any filling in there. Beautiful. Okay.
So obviously this is the easy part of the recipe.
That's right. So I'm gonna go line this with a little bit of parchment in our beans and get it blind baking, and I'll grab the one that I've already made, baked, ready to fill.
All right. So Diana, next step?
Next step is the custard, or curd, as I like to call it.
Eggs, lemon, sugar, butter. Simple. Simple.
That's right. So we're gonna start with our eggs. We have both whole eggs and yolks. 3 whole eggs down into the pot. Bunch of egg yolks. That's what makes it so rich and decadent, of course. Then we have some lemon zest. I just grated this. It's very fragrant and nice. 2 whole lemons worth. And a whole bunch of sugar. Beautiful. And now I'm just gonna whisk it together until it's smooth. Don't want to get any lumps in there.
The flavor is amazing just from this lemon zest.
Already, you could almost eat it raw, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, interesting, Diana, when you think about how she became popular for this particular dish, is because lemons were very scarce and very expensive. All the lemons during this time came all the way from Seville, Spain, on the ships, so did the oranges. And they were sold by the piece. As a matter of fact, the price was negotiated, guess where? Right in the city tavern, which was the unofficial merchants' exchange. But Mrs. Goodfellow was pretty smart. She got her shop right on the harbor where the ships come in. So I'm sure she had connections with the sea captain. Hey, if there's some lemons that didn't look so good and you couldn't sell it, give them to me. I make lemon juice. What do you think?
Beautiful. So our yolks and
Perfect,
sugar
yep.
are perfectly combined. The last piece here is fresh squeezed lemon juice. Got about a cup. Put that down there as well. And we're ready to go to the fire. Okay.
Got that lemon juice and the lemon zest in there. What a flavor.
Oh yes, wouldn't make it without both. So I'm gonna grab our spoon here, and this is another one that needs to be continually stirred over the fire.
Oh, Diana, do you see what's behind the wood there?
Oh, is that our salamander?
It is the salamander.
Okay.
And you know why they call it salamander, right? Because it changes its color.
There you
When
go.
it gets hot, look at how red it is.
Just like a real
This is how we're
salamander.
going to glaze the meringue in a little bit. That's going to be interesting.
Yes. Okay, so this will take a good couple of minutes. All right, this custard is coming together nicely. I'm going to remove it while still stirring. Stir,
Yep.
stir, stir. That's the only rule here. It's nice and hot. I'm gonna pour it right over this half a pound of butter. And this, I'm gonna let it sit for a little while and get it melting, the butter, and then I'm gonna whisk it all together, and it's gonna magically turn into a beautiful, beautiful curd.
How much time again? Like you say, a couple hours?
If
Settle
you
down over and
put
over.
it in something shallow and flat, it'll happen in a couple of hours. Or you could set it over an ice bath or
Gotcha.
anything to get it nice and cold.
And you already made some for me so I get to see it, right?
That's right.
Taste it. Look at that.
Tasty?
You know, many times when we do things and keep few ingredients, it makes it so much better.
That's right.
That's why I say less is always better than too much, but it's really beautiful.
Ready to put it all together?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Get a good amount of our curd to the shell here. Beautiful. All right. And look
So
at this. Beautiful, beautiful, very stiff little snow mountain
We're
here.
going to make a nice design on top, knowing you.
That's right. Mile high. All of the meringue. When you think you've had enough meringue,
You don't have
add
enough.
more. That's right. That's the rule. Just pile it on. Oh yeah. Really seal in the lemon.
Salamander is getting nice and toasty behind us. Yeah, man. There you
Like
go.
I said, always more.
Yeah.
Never enough. Let's get a little design going. And any of the peaks that stick up are gonna brown better than the rest. So some spikes going there. And
That looks like my hair.
guys are looking pretty similar here today. So
right.
that's a good sign. All
That's
right.
good. All right, so now comes the most important part. Next, I'm going to reach to the salamander, which you already know is nothing more than an iron blade, red hot in the fire.
Okay. Slowly, slowly. There we go. Got some color going on up top.
Move it around then.
Beautiful.
Slow. I want to go back to the top too. Okay. Leave it right there. What do you think? Good?
I think that looks great. Perfectly toasted.
Quite a lot of work to glaze the lemon meringue pie, but just imagine how they had to do it in the 18th century. Make 50 of those. Oh,
Oh yeah, that's a workout and a half, but
fantastic.
yes, it smells delicious.
It does.
That burnt meringue smells just like marshmallows.
Looks so good.
And that's all she wrote.
The things we do in a taste of history, huh? Diana, as always, fantastic job. But you know, it's hard to believe we're going back to 1801 to Mrs. Goodfellow's finishing school and 20 stones away from the city tower. Just amazing. And that everybody still gives her credit for the lemon meringue pie is even more amazing, you know? So, Mrs. Goodfellow, I'll thank you from the bottom of my heart, and so does Diana, for what you've done, and all for a very sweet taste of history.